Let's go back a bit. I should just go back to I'm one of the ones going to see the more someone first. I know it's
So when we think about it, right, before, I think if you go 50 years back, or 75 years back, all the non-profit charity work that is done by religious people, religious organizations, before the rise of secular non-profits and all of that. And so, especially the kind of work that exposes oneself to a lot of suffering. It's done by religious people, and in Christian context, Catholic context. The shield that they have for all that suffering is reliance on God, prayer. That makes it possible for them to continue to do day in and day out. And for some, that kind of prayer has slipped away, or a trust in God has slipped away. Then they slip into very dark places, right? And then abusive things happen. Right? We all know that story. But I think part of that abuse that they then inflict on others, even though they're in a position that is supposed to serve, is in part of the trauma that they have seen all around them. But then they have lost what keeps them going. Right? So in the same way here, in order to cultivate compassion in this non-God-based system, if God-based system works for you, you don't have a problem. Don't mess up your system here. I remember in one public talk that the Dalai Lama gave about love and compassion or something like that, and it was a public talk. And somebody asked a question and said, as a Christian, I appreciate your emphasis on love and compassion, all of that. I recognize that all spiritual traditions have this, but I am also curious about your Buddhist understanding of emptiness. The Dalai Lama, in that scenario, I remember, his response was just like, don't worry about it. He says, this is not your system. And in fact, if I talk too much about emptiness, it might upset you on your trust and belief. Love, metta, loving kindness. So often I think we want to practice compassion. And that also is sort of innate, why we want to practice compassion. It's not just like, oh, I like to think of myself as compassionate. I mean, there is that too. But I think there's something deeper, which is, so what is compassion? I mean, I'm not going to talk much today, tomorrow, but as a preview, what is compassion? Compassion is, as we say, right, to be free from suffering, the wish for freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering. Both the wish for happiness and the causes of happiness and the wish for freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering are actually innate. So no one wants to suffer. Now, we might become addicted to suffering, but that's not because we want suffering. It's because we don't know You know, whenever we see suffering, our first response is always, don't want. And it doesn't matter where we see that. Of course, with ourselves, immediately, don't want. Right? But even with others, and even with your enemy, if you have an enemy, I think very few of us have enemies. You know? We just have inconvenient people that turn up in our lives. I mean, we're fortunate, you know, that we, for the most part, don't think of anyone as enemy. You know? But even with those people, right, your immediate response is, oh, don't want. And then in the next moment, you're like, yeah, you deserve it. Right? That comes afterwards. That's already something else going on. You know? That's something else going on. The innate response is always, don't want. Out. You know? So that's innate. But just because it's innate too doesn't mean that, okay, now let's go. Yeah? Let's go, you know, practice compassion. Yes, we know, you know, that this is a praise on compassion. So we have to go there. But we have to go there with some preparation. We have to go there with proper protection. And that protection is the protection of metta. Of wishing happiness and the causes of happiness. That's important. So now here, the causes of happiness, there are many. But in so far as metta as a meditation, metta as a state of mind to be cultivated, then the primary cause here is first recognizing what metta is, what maitri is, and recognizing how much of this we have received and how much of this is continuously what's keeping us alive, so that we begin to recognize more and more and more and more. Because in the recognition of the presence of maitri, of metta, then that's our font. That's our font that will not run dry. But we cannot take for granted. So we have to keep. So in the Theravada tradition, this meditation is done by, you know, the repeating, more conventionally. I'm sure there are other ways to, but more conventionally it's done with, you know, may I be well and happy. And then may you be well and happy. But the technique that we use is a little bit more on images rather than that. Yeah? But whatever works for you, the principle is basically the same. Yeah? Opening up to recognizing metta is what has kept us alive until now. Other people's metta for us, even when we did not recognize it. And how much more now if we recognize that and accept that. Then when we accept it, then we have more of it. And we'll have more and more and more. Now when we have more, we can then radiate that for others. Then that's when we can work with difficult people and bring them into this space. But you have to experiment. Don't try to be, you know, heroic. That's like, you know, going to a gym and very impressed by, you know, how much that person can press. And saying, well, me too. You tear your muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you won't go back. Or you might not be able to go back in this lifetime if the muscle is torn so badly. be careful. So when it comes to compassion, Chandakirti goes into more details because compassion requires a lot more understanding. Love, goodwill, it's relatively speaking of the two is rather uncomplicated. Relatively speaking. You can complicate it for sure if you want to. But the compassion one is a little bit more complex. So here he explains 3 levels of compassion. The way in which our compassion changes as it is informed by 3 levels of understanding. Who is it that we are having compassion for? And what is the status of those that we have compassion for? It's not like 3 persons. It's the same person, the same object, but there are depths to an understanding of who is that person, who is that object of compassion. So it's more complex. Now, training in metta. So for the next 10 minutes, I want to introduce a second part to this metta, which is when we radiate to others. But in your kind of practice of this, maybe not necessary in one session to do both, receiving and then radiating. Maybe at the beginning, it depends. Individually, it's different. Some of us have to do a lot more of feeling that love, and more importantly, learning, getting used to accepting that love without judgment. Recognizing the love without judgment, without suspicion. But since we only have one weekend, and there's some information that needs to be shared, so we have to kind of rush on to the next part of the radiate. So I'll guide us through this part. So again, just be comfortable. Sit in a comfortable way, comfortable position, be at ease. And a few deep breaths in and out so that body and mind can relax and be spacious and open and present. So we start with that. So first begin by relaxing both body and mind, allowing space and awareness to be present. Let awareness be present in this unbounded space that you can feel, that you can kind of relax into. This unbounded spaciousness, once again bring to mind all those individuals, known and unknown, living and having passed on, those you personally know and those you don't know, all those beings that you recognize have been kind to you, extended metta to you in one way or another, on one occasion or another. They need not be perfect at all. Just recall those instances. With some, it's only one instance. With others, many, many instances in which you have received their love, their care, their wish for well-being and wellness for you. Bring them all into the space in front of you, seated, standing, facing you. And let their metta, let their love for you take on the form of this moonlight, radiant, cool, soothing, and light up this whole space. And in particularly, lighting you up, outside, inside, so that the spaciousness is also an illuminated space. Continue to feel your metta radiating towards you. As more and more metta is being radiated towards you, try to let go of your defenses. Try to let go of your resistance. Try to let go of your guilt. Try to let go of all that is preventing you from unconditionally basking in this metta. Feel that you're breathing in this light of metta, and feel that every pore on your skin is absorbing this metta into you. And when you can, when you're ready, now imagine these individuals, one by one. They walk towards you, and then they settle behind you. And the one that you feel has given you the most metta, being the first ones to come and stand behind you or sit behind you. And if you like, you could even think that they place a hand or two on your shoulders, and the others placing their hands on the shoulders of them, and so on and so forth. So that now you have a whole village, a whole town, a whole universe of all these individuals behind you, and continuing to radiate metta, now through their hands, passing on from body to body to body, from body to arms to hands. In front of you. let this metta radiate without any boundaries, without any limitation. Let all the metta, let all the love that you have experienced now gather together and radiate into the entire universe, into the whole world, wishing all beings happiness and the causes of happiness, wishing them to be well, wishing them to be happy, wishing them to have the causes of wellness and the causes of happiness. Bring to mind how all these beings that are receiving your metta the metta that you are radiating covers the entire universe. So this final part, of no difference between those who give and those who receive, is important to do that. That pertains to the wisdom side. Questions or comments? I'm done. Yes?
So if I'm at work and I'm, my head's not in the right place towards someone, but I'm able to do that, because I know it's through somebody else or whatever, so is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, don't ask permission.
Okay.
Trust your
No,
process.
no Buddhist police.
Yes. Trust your process.
Okay.
Develop your path.
Okay. And can we use
Yes.
deities if we want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. They too are a source of love and kindness.
Okay.
Yes.
I know someone who's addicted to
And then in radiating metta to this person, you will also catch glimpses of this person, reflecting that back to you. But don't have any expectations. Just be open to recognizing
Wow.
that that person has the capacity, and given the right circumstance, will show that, will radiate that. But because of our label and concept, which is not random, right? Based on experience, you know, like you said, this person is addicted to suffering. But nothing is constant. There are those moments where, you know, the metta, even briefly, comes through. And if you connect with that, you then possibly create some space, some opening in that. Possibly. No expectations. This is about paying attention. So these exercises, I should mention, because it might be useful to you if you want to pursue a more kind of well laid out. We like books, right? It's in this book called Awakening Through Love by John Mccransky. Some of you might be familiar with that. Awakening Through Love. And so he has a very well, in part, what you have heard. The technique especially is adapted from his book. But the part about Jilin Sungun, how do you identify what love is, of course, that's from Drugum instructions. But the technique of them behind you, like radiating, that is in Mccransky book.
What's the last name?
Mccransky. John Mccransky. It's actually a yeah. So tomorrow we will begin again at 10 Central Standard Time. I know some of you on the East Coast that might be watching, some of you on the West Coast, some of you might be in the Mountain Time. So we will continue tomorrow at 10. It will be 10 to 1 and then 3 to 5 again. Actually, in case there's might be some confusion as to how many retreats are going on. Because originally we thought it won't be 3 to 5, it will just be 10 to 1. But we will have 3 to 5 tomorrow as well. 10 to 1 and 3 to 5. And then here is the PSA part of this project. Right?
There it is.
Oh, okay, it's back.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a good sign, selflessness is good. Because, so anyway, when I said, maybe it doesn't matter urban dharma, then it came back on. So yeah, those of you out there, thank you for joining us. And I know for a fact that the Ecumenical Buddhist Society in Little Rock and Urban Dharma in North Carolina, these are two Buddhist organizations that are running on a land of barbarians in Buddhist language. We are at places where the Dharma is new and support is limited. So go to the EBS website, which is ebslr.org. ebslr.org. And there is a way, a very easy way to just make a donation. Your $5 helps. Don't underestimate. Your Your $50, of course, helps. But your $5 helps. And if you can do that, you will feel good too. So, in any case, if you cannot do that, there are still many ways to help. Share this video with others. There's enough bad news on Facebook. No amount of sharing bad news, especially on Facebook, changes anything, I think. Good news, I think, might change. Might. Bad news usually just makes things worse, makes most of us more miserable. Most of us can't quite act on the bad news and say, I'm going to go now fix that bad news over there, over there, over there. But good news can usually inspire us to do something right here, right now. So share the good news. So thank you, and we will see everyone, whether you're out there or here tomorrow.
Thank you.